I'm gonna get answers before I leave this world. He said, bye, Mom, I love you, I'll see you in a little while. And he drove off, and I never in a million years thought that was it.
If his family and I didn't try so hard and keep pushing, that Bradley would be forgotten right now.
I just ask that somebody come forward and do what's right and just let us finally put this to rest. God gave him to me, and I'm going to get answers before I leave this world.
Days turned into weeks, weeks turned into years. Not a rock goes unturned or lead go unfollowed in the search for Bradley Stracener.
He said, bye, Mom, I love you, I'll see you in a little while. And he drove off, and I never in a million years thought that was it.
October 30th will mark the 3rd anniversary of his disappearance. The vehicle Stracener was driving was located near Shady Oaks Trailer Park in the Sandy Hill area on October 31st, according to the Vernon Parish Sheriff's Office. The vehicle unlocked, keys laying in the seat. Bradley has not been seen since, nor has any viable information regarding his disappearance surfaced.
Searches of the woods, interviews with the last people that have seen him those days. It's still a mystery as to where Bradley is.
On the 2nd anniversary of his disappearance, the Sheriff's Office said they believe that foul play is probably involved. Most recently, law enforcement partnered with an out-of-state search and rescue group to once again search that area.
The dogs and the dog handlers did not come up with anything new.
Nearly 3 excruciatingly long years without answers.
Who, what, when, where, we know nothing. We just know that come October, it's going to be 3 years since anyone on earth has seen or heard from him.
His family wants people to remember his infectious laugh and the love he had for his son.
If his family and I didn't try so hard and keep pushing, that Bradley would be forgotten right now.
I just ask that somebody come forward and do what's right and just let us finally put this to rest, because this has been 3 years of hell.
Right now. Go. Oh, my
ex-husband.
apologies.
Welcome back to Missing People in America with Tessa and Jessica. Today we are here with the ex-wife of Bradley Stracener, who went missing from Leesville, Louisiana on October 30th, 2019. Can you tell us a little bit about Bradley?
Yes, ma'am, I absolutely can. My name, first of all, is Morgan. My name is Morgan, and Bradley is my ex-husband. Bradley is the father of my oldest child, my oldest son, um, which looks identical to him. It's actually kind of eerie sometimes. But Bradley had a pretty silly personality. He was happy most of the time. He really loved Oliver. There was nothing, Oliver being our son, there was nothing. Oliver could do the most simple thing in the world, and Bradley just thought it was brilliant and genius, you know? Um, Unfortunately, Bradley struggled with drug addiction, and which is ultimately the reason why we divorced. I tried for a really long time to help him, to save him, to show him a better way of living. Um, and things change when you have a child, you know? And as much as I wanted to keep helping him and not, it felt like giving up on him, choosing to divorce him. But I had a baby to take care of, and I had to make a better life for myself and for my son. And that's why, you know, Bradley and I divorced. But even after we divorced, Bradley would see Oliver, and I would bring him over to his aunt and uncle's where he lived most of the time, and he would see Oliver pretty regularly. But things got pretty tough. Um, and for about 2 years before Bradley went missing, Bradley and I were completely 100% out of touch. So I would say about one time, let's see, he went missing in 2019. It was sometime in 2018 when I very last saw Bradley. He had just actually gotten out of jail, and a couple of months had went by, and he asked to see Oliver. And Oliver hadn't seen him in more than a year at that point. And so I told him yes, that he could see Oliver. I brought my sister with me to the meeting location. I left Oliver and my sister in the vehicle. Bradley sent me a text message, and he said, "I'm here." And I said, "I am too. Come in." And he came inside, and of course, you know, I didn't have Oliver in there with me, and that's the first thing he asked is, "Where is he? Where's Oliver?" And I said, "He's out in the car with Gracie, and you can see him. I'll go get him right now." And I said, "But you have to take and pass this drug test first." He walked in through the door with Oliver's favorite snack in the world, Yoo-Hoos and donut holes for him and Oliver. And when I told him, you know, because everything was at my discretion because of the custody ruling and that kind of stuff, when I told him that he had to take and pass the drug test in order to see Oliver, everything changed. The light left his face. His shoulders drooped. And he said, "Are you kidding me?" And I said, "No, I'm not kidding you. I mean it, Bradley, with all of my heart. I told you, you're going to be in his life or out of it. You're going to be in his life, and you're going to be clean, and you're going to be consistent, and you're going to be a good father, or not at all." And he set the donut holes and the Yoo-Hoos down in a chair, and he was just shaking his head. And he said, "Tell my son that I love him." And he turned around and he walked away. And that was the very last time that I ever laid eyes on Bradley. I cannot sit here and tell you today whether or not I did the right thing with the decision that I made. But whether it was right or wrong, I'll never outlive the regret that I have for that. For about a year after that, I didn't hear from him. And then, like you said, on October 30th, 2019, he has not ever been seen or heard from again since. He had a girlfriend at the time, and he was gone in her car. That vehicle was found abandoned at a dead-end road not far from one of his last known locations. And it's it's been 5 years, and it's been 5 years of hell.
Can you tell us about his disappearance?
Yeah, like I said, he and I was so out of touch. I didn't know much about Bradley. I didn't know who he was hanging out with. I didn't even know where he lived at. I didn't know what he was doing. I didn't know where he was working. When I say out of touch, I mean completely. And I guess about a week or so after he went missing, I was at work. I was actually at a coworker's house after work. And one of my close friends gave me a call, and I hadn't heard from her in a while, and I was pretty excited, to see her name across my phone. And I answered, and I was like, hey girl, how are you doing? What's going on? And she said, I was just calling to tell you that I'm so sorry to hear about Bradley. And I instantly just sick. Instantly, like, what do you mean you're sorry to hear about Bradley? And she's like, well, you haven't heard? And at this point, I'm just losing it. And I said, heard what? What is going on? Please just tell me. She said, well, he's missing. And I'll never forget. You'll never forget, certain phone calls. And that's one I'll never forget. I was like, missing? Do you know how many times he's been missing? Like, he's just tired and fed up. He's mad at his mom. He don't have nowhere to go. He's running from the law. That ain't nothing new. I was like, he's gonna turn up, before long. And she's like, well, you're not worried? I was like, no, not at all. And she's like, well, okay, if you're not worried. And I was like, yeah, girl, just give it a couple of weeks. And a couple of weeks went by. And then a couple of more weeks, and a couple of more. And over those days, we're all talking with each other. I stayed the closest with most of his father's family, and everybody's in touch constantly. Have you heard from Bradley? Have you seen Bradley? Have you heard anything about Bradley? What's going on? When Bradley would just run off, someone, usually multiple people, always heard from him. Always. And then you start hearing things. We live in a really small town. The entire parish is a really large parish in size. Over the last 5 to 10 years, the census is anywhere from like 46 to 48,000 people in a really big parish. Everybody knows everybody. rumors and word of mouth spreads like wildfire on a dry, windy day, so when his dad, when his mother, when his uncle, when not even I had heard from him for so long, we're all just worried to death. It's the most helpless feeling, and you're sick, and you're scared, and you're worried. Thanksgiving Day of 2019 rolled around, and it had already been on my mind. And after everything I had heard and everybody I had talked to and all of the places I had went looking for Bradley, I finally told my mom. I said, I don't know why and I don't know what, but I think this time is different. And I'm really afraid that he's not going to come back this time. And I could see her body language change. And she kind of took a deep breath. And she said, I'm glad that you said that because I've been thinking the same thing. So family had left and food was put up, and I told her I needed to leave. I needed to just go away for a while. And she said, okay, I'll watch after Oliver. And I drove to the trailer park. I'm so sorry I have a snot. And
No, you're good.
I said, I drove up in the trailer park where he had last been seen. I had heard things over the weeks. And the trailer park, Shady Oaks Trailer Park in Sandy Hill, Louisiana, at a couple's home. Their name is Jason and Danielle. I had been told multiple times by multiple people, including the sheriff's office, that was one of the places that he had been at multiple different times throughout the day. And I didn't know what I was doing or where I was going or if I would talk to anybody or see anyone. I just had no clue. I was just going. And I drove up in that trailer park, and I just seen some people outside. There was no one else outside in the whole entire trailer park but these people. And I pulled up to their trailer and I said, hey, I'm Morgan, and I'm Bradley Stracener's ex-wife, and he's been missing for a few weeks now. And I was just wondering if y'all know him, if y'all have seen him, if y'all know anything. And two individuals looked at me through my window, and they pointed at Jason and Danielle's trailer, and they said, if you want to know, they didn't say if you want to know where Bradley is. They said, if you want to know what happened to Bradley, you need to go ask those people in that trailer. And I drove up to that trailer. It was like 50 yards from there, kind of setting back a little. And I knocked on the door, and nobody came to the door. And a week or so later, I drove up to that trailer again, and I knocked on that door, and nobody came to it. I was on my way again another week or so later, and I received a word from someone. They said that Jason and Danielle said that I better not come to their house again. They didn't want to talk to me. They had nothing to say to me, and they didn't want to talk about Bradley. That I better not show back up. And right then and there, it just kind of come full circle for me. Everybody, everywhere I went, and I mean everybody, wanted to talk about Bradley Stracener. They wanted to talk to me. They wanted to talk about Bradley. They wanted to ask me questions. They wanted to tell me things, except for a very small handful of people. They supposedly, I have never seen proof of this, and over the years I've grown to question everything. They supposedly were served a search warrant. Their trailer was searched. The trailer park where they lived was searched. Nothing was found. About a year and a half to 2 years after that, there was a volunteer search done by the organization called CUE. To the best of my knowledge, nothing was found. One time, one of the dogs hit, and we got word about it. And then they came back and said it was nothing. It was an old homestead place, and that there was old family graves there. And that was just something that I don't know about the rest of Bradley's family, but it stays on the back of my mind. We were just forced to accept that answer. It's just been one thing after another. I would say about a month or two ago, there's an individual whose name had come up a couple of different times, and I do believe that this individual was questioned. I actually got the privilege to have a phone conversation with this person. They're doing really well now, and as far as I can tell, they went through rehab. They're sobered up. They told me that 2 weeks before Bradley went missing, they went to buy drugs together. They show up at this other person, not Bradley's drug dealer, but at the other person's house, apartment in Country Manor Apartments to buy drugs. And Bradley tried to pay with counterfeit money. And I've always said this, finding this out 5 years later is so crazy to me, because I've always said, because Bradley was always involved with counterfeit money. He always was involved with individuals who was involved with counterfeit money and fraudulent things like that. So to find this out, it was like the proof that I knew all along. But he shows up to this drug dealer's house and tries to pay with counterfeit money. And I've always said, that's an issue, because then all the people up the line and in that chain can't get their cut of the illegal activity that's going on. And he confirmed that to me. He said, all he had to say about it was, I didn't have anything to do with that. And, things started going down, and I told them that they needed to bring me home. I didn't have nothing to do with this. And I was very specific in my questions and my statements with this individual. I said, it was not the night that he went missing or the day that he went missing. And he said, no, it was about 2 weeks before. And he said, and I never saw Bradley again after that. And then I heard he had gone missing. So I don't know what exactly went on that night that he tried to pay someone with counterfeit money. And I don't know exactly what happened on the night that he went missing. We've been through everything. Rumors are insane. This is what I can tell you. I've watched true crime documentaries and forensic files, cold case files, cops, all of that. All of the things like that, all of my entire life with my mom. My mom was a true crime fanatic long before podcasts and any of that was a thing. And for as long as I can remember, I've watched those series and those videos and those documentaries. And I always thought to myself, how sad. I always wondered what those people felt like and tried to put myself in their shoes and imagine the things that they've went through and how they must feel. And unfortunately for me and for the rest of Bradley's family, that has became a real life nightmare. I now know exactly how they feel and what they go through and what they experience and how painful and agonizing it is. The Detective David Vance, called me one morning about a year into his disappearance, and it was about 7-ish in the morning. And he said, I just wanted you to know before word gets back to you that we think that we have found Bradley. You know, it's in the right area. And I got another call about an hour later. They sent the pictures of the skeletal remains, which was, they called hands at first, to LSU Faces Lab, and LSU Faces Lab confirmed that it was actually bear paws. Apparently, bear paws look very similar to the skeletal remains of human hands. So it ended up to not, of course, be Bradley. One man confessed. He told 3 different stories. The only thing that didn't change throughout his 3 stories was the weapon of choice, which in his story was a sawed-off shotgun, and the location. This man's son then brought evidence and proof that he wasn't even in not only town, but the entire state of Louisiana. He was in California working. I've heard that he was thrown over a bridge. I've heard that he was put in a wood chipper. I've heard that he was put in a well. And I think that people don't really realize how damaging to a case that just saying anything is. If it's not helpful to solve a case, it's best to just not say it. You know, if you wasn't there and you didn't know that for a fact, and this is secondhand information, not firsthand information, it's best to not say it because it really is very harmful to a case. 4 years into his disappearance in the summer of 2023, as if Bradley being gone and missing in itself and not having answers isn't sad and heartbreaking enough. An individual came forward. She was arrested. Her name was Austin O'Banion. She was arrested later in the week, and the weekend passed by, and Monday rolled around, and she wanted to speak with the detectives. And unfortunately, and I say unfortunately because Austin is no longer with us. Unfortunately, she gave an eyewitness recount of what happened to Bradley. on October 30th, 2019. She said she couldn't take it anymore. She couldn't live with the secret. She had to get it off of her conscience. She couldn't live with it, and she wanted his family to know what happened. The story that was relayed to me from Detective David Vance out of his mouth behind a closed door in his office was that Austin O'Banion was walking on the side of the road, or I'm sorry, that Bradley was, because I have more information from other individuals who was in jail with Austin. So, but Detective Vance said that Bradley was walking on the side of the road and that Austin picked him up, and they decided to go and buy drugs together. And they drove to an abandoned house. And Bradley went inside of that abandoned house to buy the drugs, and that she waited in the car. And a couple of minutes went by and she heard 2 gunshots. And she was on the phone with a friend and she was freaking out. What do I do? Do I leave? Do I stay? I don't know what's going on. I'm scared. And before she can get out of the driveway, a man whose initials I use only, JS, was in her window with a gun to her head and drug her out of the vehicle and drug her inside. And once inside in the front room, she sees a body under a sheet and a tarp and an arm laying out from underneath it. She never saw Bradley's face, but she said Bradley had a blue bracelet on, and that the arm that was sticking out from under the sheet had a blue bracelet on it. And there were 2 more individuals inside of the house. You want to guess who they were?
I got a good guess.
Jason and Danielle. And that they beat Austin up and, said, if you ever tell, or you're going to die too, we're going to kill you too. And when they brought her back up front, Bradley was wrapped in sheets and tarps and ropes and chains, and they loaded his body up into the back of their white Ford Explorer and put Austin in with him. And they drove to the river bridge. The river bridge, for people local to me, knows that that's at Sabine River on Highway 8 at the Texas-Louisiana state line. And the whole way, they're still threatening to kill Austin. And they throw him over the bridge, and for whatever reason, and this is all just according to the detective's story that he told me, drive Austin back to the house and decide to let her go. And they say, if you ever tell anybody, we'll kill you and your whole family. And I don't know what made Austin say anything at all. If all of those things is what she told them, and that's the truth, I don't know. I think it just goes to show her heart and who she really was underneath her addiction. So I received that phone call from Detective Vance about him needing to talk with me. And I was like, I can talk right now. And he said, no, can you talk in person? And I went almost right away. And that is the story that he told me behind a closed door. And he told me everything, including Jason and Danielle's name, which I already knew. He told me the third name, JS. He told me everything except for Austin O'Banion's name. About 2 weeks after he told me all of that, I received a visit from one of Bradley's cousins that I'm really close with, and he walked in my house saying, have you heard? And I was like, heard what? Once again, you people have to stop doing this to me. Heard what? And he said about that girl who told what happened to Bradley. She's they found her dead this morning. And I really just lost it. He actually he came and walked to and kind of pushed me backwards and sat me in a chair. And I was just hyperventilating, and I said, she's dead. And I said, what was her name? And that's the very first time I ever heard Austin O'Banion's name. He said, they're saying that it was Austin O'Banion and that she told the sheriff's office what happened to Bradley, and they just found her dead this morning. I can't even, I don't know. I was hurt. I was sad. I was angry. I didn't know if it was true. I was praying to God that it wasn't true. I started trying to call Detective Vance right away. I called the next day on a Sunday. I called Monday. Morning. I decided if he didn't answer on Monday morning, I was going up there. He didn't answer, and I was on my way. I was halfway to the sheriff's office when he called me back. And there's a lot of phone calls, just like I already said, that you'll never forget. And this will forever be one of them. He calls me back, and he says, hey, Morgan. And I just, just word vomit. Is it true? Is it true? Is the girl that told y'all what happened to Bradley, is she dead? And is her name Austin O'Banion? And he says, Morgan, yes, that is who told us. Austin O'Banion told us, and she is no longer alive. But, and I'm just saying verbatim what he said. But her death is looking like an unfortunate coincidence, and it's looking like an apparent overdose. And unfortunately, her story died with her. He said those things to me in that order, word for word. And I was like, no, 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 no. I said to him right then and there, I said, her story didn't die with her. You said she passed the polygraph test. You said she passed the polygraph test with flying colors, that she did as well as you can possibly do on a polygraph test. And she told you, you must have recorded it. You must have, written it down, something. And you told me her story did not die with her. And then he starts crawfishing. Well, what I mean is we can't go back and ask her any more questions anymore. And I was just like, yeah, bingo. Bingo. The only eyewitness can no longer be asked any more questions anymore. Too many things about this entire case and the way that it has been handled from the word go almost leaves me speechless. How do people end up in positions like that who have no clue, no idea what they're doing, how to talk to the loved one of a missing person? I was not okay at all. I actually missed a couple of days of work. I tried really hard to go to work and keep myself together when Austin O'Banion died. This is a woman who I had never even heard of in my whole life. I cannot describe the feeling to you. being distraught over the death of a woman that I didn't even know. Part of me to this day wishes that she wouldn't have ever said anything, because maybe she would still be here. And from that point forward, I knew that if I ever saw justice, if I ever found Bradley, if the case was ever solved, that it was not going to come from Vernon Parish Sheriff's Office. I lost complete trust and faith in them. And to this day, after what happened to Austin, I can't blame anyone for not coming forward. If anyone else knows any other information, why would they, after what happened to Austin? I joined TikTok at the advice of my community. Lots of community members and my friends, and my sister was like, you need to tell this story on TikTok. On October 5th, 2024, I uploaded the very first video ever to TikTok. I had never been on TikTok a day in my life. And I recorded my voice over Bradley's flyer, recording over his flyer. And I just said, my name is Morgan, and my ex-husband, Bradley Stracener, has been missing since October 30th, 2019. And my friends and family have been encouraging me to turn to TikTok to tell his story and get his story out there. And they said that y'all could help. And I'm going to do my best. I have no idea what I'm doing, but I'm going to do my best. The very next day, I woke up and I opened TikTok, and I had 2,000 followers. And I was just like, there's literally no way. What is happening? What is going on? Is this even real life? And I had no idea how much more and tremendously things would transpire. You know, how it was just miraculous to me. 4 days later, I didn't know what the viral number was, but apparently it's 10,000. 4 days later, 10,000 followers. A month later, 20, and then 30. And right now, I'm sitting somewhere in the 36.5 range of followers. My page is Where is Bradley Stracener, under my name, Morgan Baggett. I'm still amazed. I still can't wrap my head around it. My sister told me, she said, you tell the story and it's a 50-50% chance. It either takes off or it doesn't. And the people of TikTok will stop to no point of end. They will dig and dig and dig relentlessly until this case is solved. And I knew that I needed help outside of Vernon Parish, but I didn't know how to get that. I don't have any money. I'm the single mom of 2 children with 0 other income. And a friend of Bradley's family contacted me. And she was like, I know you don't know me, but I knew Bradley and I know his family, and this is what I think you should do. She said, you need to ask the people of TikTok for help and for financial support, and you can hire, you know, a private investigator, a lawyer, anything. And that was a very hard thing for me to do. How do you go on a social media platform and ask perfect strangers for money? And it bugged me. It bugged me so bad. But less than 2 weeks later, we had the $3,000 retainer fee for a private investigator. I had that check cut in that exact amount to his business. And I drove down to South Louisiana and I gave him that check. Another moment in all of this that I'll never forget. Slid him the check. He gave me the paperwork. We went over things. We talked extensively. And before we parted ways that day, he said, "Buckle up." More has happened in the past 5 months than in the past 5 years since Bradley went missing. Not only did I raise enough to obtain that $3,000 retainer fee, there was a little extra, almost $300 extra. And with that money, I helped pay a lawyer to file a petition for a legal presumption of death. Bradley's father helped me pay half of that fee, and I paid the other half. And that's basically where we're at.
That's awesome.
Yeah, that is fantastic that you've made such strides forward. It does stink that it's taken so long to make those strides forward, but a stride is a stride, and you're doing a fantastic job.
That's what I said. I was like, I just wish I would have made the decision to turn to TikTok so much sooner than I did. I had no way of knowing
Right.
what would happen. I think everything is in perfect timing, though, because I believe in a higher power, and I do my best to be led by him.
Now, I do have a few questions from your story.
Okay.
See where to start without going too far out. Now, did you Tracy and no, I already forgot their names. The two from the trailer park, were they ever did they ever give statements to the police?
Jason and Danielle were questioned, yes. They that's one of the things that I haven't personally been able to verify, but it was told to me that they were served the search warrant. They were given an opportunity to come in and speak to the sheriff's office on their own accord. And after a week had gone by and they were choosing not to, apparently a search warrant was served. They claim, and they have claimed on social media and like Facebook comments, that their door was kicked in and that they were screaming in the faces of their really young children, all kinds of things like that. So what was told to me by the detective was that, yes, they were questioned because of the warrant. They were brought to the station. They were questioned individually. They quickly lawyered up, and that was a wrap.
Okay.
I don't know what the rules or the laws or the regulations or the policies are, but since when does lawyering up mean you can't be questioned anymore? But they basically made it sound like they threw their hands up. Lawyer was called in and, oh, okay, they'll be coming home and you can't question them anymore.
Now, you said that they had a white Ford Explorer with Austin that night, in her store. Was that ever found?
No.
Okay.
Was JS ever questioned?
I have no idea. I do not know. I know that other people have been questioned about JS, but I do not know if he himself specifically has been questioned.
Okay. Did Austin know where this abandoned house was?
The detective told me on Lonnie Jean Loop, which is down Graham Road, which is just a little ways from Jason and Danielle's trailer park where they lived at. It's just a little ways down the highway. Now, however, I was contacted by an individual who said she was in jail with Austin at the time, and that Austin also told her what happened. and that she was going to talk to the detectives about everything. And when we very first got on the phone with each other, she said, I don't know what they told you, but they've, based off of what I've heard, they told you they lied to you about some things. She said there was no abandoned house. She said Austin told her that they drove to Jason and Danielle's house to buy drugs. And I mean, I don't know, I would say that makes sense, but I don't know what the truth is or what makes sense anymore at this point. I just know what this lady was telling me. And if that's the truth, then what the detective told me wasn't the truth, I don't know. I don't know who's telling the truth at this point. I just know that Austin O'Banion told them something, and they found it important enough to share something with me,
Do you know personally if there's abandoned homes in that area?
There are a lot of them. On Lonnie Jean Loop, there is a whole entire abandoned trailer park. Back when it was in operation, it was called the Hacienda Trailer Park, and that's all it was known for was criminal activity. And there's no one that lives in the entire trailer park anymore except for one family member. Um, I will tell you that the Gomez family owns the trailer park, and there are a couple of the Gomez family members that all of the suspects are in association with. They all were in the same circle, all doing and dealing drugs together. It's a vicious cycle. If we put it all up on a wall and connected every dot, every name, every location, what you think would be a web, you wouldn't even be able to see through. And that's what my private investigator keeps saying is there's so much to this case, and it's going to take a long time. There's so much.
Do you know if any of those abandoned homes were searched either by police or volunteers?
The individual who still lives there says that one of the homes was searched. That's how they put it to me. I'm not an expert, but I have common sense, and a structure being searched and forensics being done on a structure is two different things. Whoop-de-doo, you searched it, so did I. I didn't see anything. I looked for everything. I looked for blood splatter. I looked for holes in the wall. I looked for anything that the visible eye, could see. So who knows?
Now, that bridge that she claimed that he got thrown off of, was that water or area ever searched?
They say that yes, it was. The sheriff's office told me it was. I called Calcasieu Parish. They have what they call a marine division, and they have a dive team, and they search all over our state. I'm sure other places as well. Expert divers who go down and search the area. And I don't know how large of an area upstream or downstream from that bridge that they searched, but they told me yes, they did. That was never advertised to the public, which I don't understand because every other search ever done, we knew about it. Local news crews, KPLC, KALB, aired articles and segments on those searches, but not this one. So was it done? I don't know. And like I already said, I don't have a lot of faith in almost anyone anymore involved in it at this point.
Now, do you know how they officially ruled Austin's death?
Yes, they called it an overdose. Myself, and I am gonna speak on behalf of my community. I don't know many people who believe that. I actually don't know anyone who believes that.
Do you know if an autopsy was performed?
To the best of my knowledge, yes. I do not know what those autopsy results were. I attended her viewing the day before her funeral, and it was a closed casket. I spoke very briefly with her mother, and I spoke very briefly with her father. He pointed into the sanctuary where her casket was, and one of the things that Detective Vance told me was there wasn't a scratch on her body. I didn't know that they had said that to anyone else, but they apparently did to her family. Her father pointed into the sanctuary at her casket and said, "Tell me how they told me there wasn't a single scratch on her body, yet I have to have a closed casket funeral for my daughter. Tell me how my daughter, a 20-year drug addict, ups and overdoses after telling a story like that." He said, "You think I believe that for a second?" And I said, "No, sir, I don't believe it, and I don't think that you do either. I don't think that anyone does."
Have you spoke to Austin's parents since?
Not in detail, no. I respect their space and their privacy. I know how painful Austin's death is for me, knowing the details surrounding it. But even still, I can't imagine how painful it is for them. Um, I have in a roundabout way, through different resources, received their blessing on what I'm doing. One of her sons granted me permission to even say her name in the beginning of TikTok when I was beginning to tell the story. I was just using her initials. I was calling her AO, and I talked to one of her sons, and he gave me permission. I do know that some things may be going on under the radar that isn't really public and shouldn't be and cannot be until the time is right. But no, to just directly answer your question, no, not direct contact, as in not a visit, not a phone conversation, nothing like that. It's the best for everyone.
Now, when Bradley went missing, did he have his cell phone, wallet, keys, or anything like that with him?
To the best of my knowledge, he did not have a cell phone. In fact, I know for a fact that Chelsea, his girlfriend, was calling Jason and Danielle to communicate with him. She was saying, Bradley really needs to bring my car home. I need him to bring my car home. And she may have spoke to him once, and other times Jason and Danielle were relaying what information Chelsea was saying to them, to Bradley. So I don't know what other way that he could have been tracked except for through the car or Jason and Danielle's calls. My private investigator has posed the question many times, why wasn't cell phone data triangulated and pinged? If it was, they've kept that very secret, but to the best of my knowledge, it was not. They did not utilize that. And now, 5 years later, most probably too late to do so.
And you said that her car was found abandoned.
Yeah, not very far at all from Jason and Danielle's house. In fact, if even a mile, maybe a mile and a half at the most. It was found at a dead end road. The road continued going, but it was blocked by a big lease gate, and it was down the same road. So it's a road, one single road, and then it Y's, and it dead ends down both Y's. So they lived in the trailer park that was off of the main road, but then you keep going, and if you veer to the left of that Y, that's where the car was found. And the individual who was in jail with Austin that told me, different parts of the story that didn't match up with what Austin had told her, we've always wondered who put the car there. It was an early theory of mine that Bradley was mad at Chelsea. He didn't want to bring the car home. He wasn't going to bring the car home, and he parked the car there and was just going to go do whatever and said, I'll show her. She can find the car herself, because he was very stubborn and spiteful like that. But this individual told me that Austin told her that Jason and Danielle and JS made her drive the car to that dead end road and leave it there. And then they, got her back into the vehicle. And if that's the case, she really wouldn't have had anywhere to go, because like I said, it was a dead end road. So, and like I said, that is just what I am being told by someone else who says Austin told her the story too.
Do you know if any forensics or anything was done on the vehicle?
It was 5 months later. 5 months after Bradley disappeared. He disappears on October 30th. A missing persons report was filed on November 5th. And 5 months later, after Chelsea and I were pressing them to do forensics, because like I said, common sense. I'm no expert, but isn't that what you do when you're trying to solve a case? If you have evidence and forensics available to you, you want to get that as soon as possible. But no, they waited 5 whole months, and it's infuriating. It's so infuriating. It shows to me all kinds of things. Their lack of concern, their lack of competence, and even now, as more and more as time goes on, the corruption. I almost can't take it. It's almost too much to handle. How blatant everything is. How clear to.
I was going to ask if you knew if they found anything inside that vehicle.
They didn't. They didn't. It had been cleaned. They were trying to sell it. The car didn't even belong to Chelsea. It belonged to her grandmother. And Chelsea's family was pretty upset with her at this point, and she wasn't doing very well. And they took that car from her.
Now, Chelsea is has she been helping with the searches and things like that?
She always has, from day one. Even when she wasn't clean and sober, she was very helpful. Even, now she is clean and sober now, and she's living a really healthy life. And as we discussed earlier, she couldn't join us here today because she's visiting with her children and her family in a different state. And she's doing phenomenally. And she has never once not made herself available to me for questions or answering questions, and things like that.
I am out of questions, Jessica. Do you have any more?
I was going to ask, if you know, I don't want you to speak for Chelsea, of course, but if what she thinks or knows about Jason and Danielle and that situation when he did go missing.
She just knows. She's never spoken directly about them. She just has no idea, you know. She clearly and obviously was not there. She didn't really like the way that Jason and Danielle reacted or responded in the days, weeks, and months following Bradley's disappearance, and she eventually cut ties with them. But as far as ever telling me anything specifically incriminating them, she didn't, because she didn't know. She wasn't any kind of a witness or anything, so she can't speak on anything like that.
And did she know who JS was before that name came out?
I've asked her, and she said no, she didn't know who he was. Her and I have discussed a lot of things extensively, and it was kind of a realization. Although, of course, you know, Bradley and I were married and were together for a whole lot longer and had a child between us, the similarities in how he operated in the relationship with her were really close to mine. You know, Bradley was pretty secretive. He was extremely secretive with me because I never partook in anything that he did, you know, especially not the drugs and the drug use and stuff like that. But even though him and Chelsea were kind of in active addiction together, he was even still pretty secretive. And I think he sounded a lot like the letter that he wrote, which is something we haven't even discussed. He says that he thought that she was cheating on him, you know, and I never once even dreamed of cheating on Bradley. He accused me of cheating a couple of times. So, um, is anything being interrupted?
Oh,
Uh-oh.
hold on, let's get her right back
It
on.
appears we
Yep.
lost her. It appears we lost her. Let's.
Yeah, we're trying to get her back on now.
Yep,
Yeah.
we'll get her right back on. Just a second here.
I think she went to tap and make sure her screen was good and accidentally hit the button.
Yep.
There, she's back.
Okay.
All right, cool.
There she comes.
Thank you.
Are you guys still there?
We
Yeah,
are, ma'am. Yep.
Phew, I'm so sorry. I pressed the wrong thing.
That's
no
okay.
worries.
No worries. We're back.
Thank goodness.
So you were speaking about the letter that he had written.
Yeah, I feel like that's kind of a bombshell. We're revealing that super late into this interview, but it's okay. We've covered a lot of important things. Bradley hand wrote a letter 2 months prior to him going missing. And he ended that letter, and I have it right here. The very last sentence of that letter that he wrote was, I write all of this because I am worried. And then 2 months later, he goes missing. The sheriff's office, the detective in particular, to my face, said to me that this letter was nothing but crackhead gibberish. Hold on, I don't know. Can you guys hear me?
We can hear you, but you're frozen.
Okay, hold on. Yeah, I've got to tell this person to stop calling me. And okay. Are you guys there?
Yeah.
Yes. Yes, and we can see you too.
Okay, there you are.
Perfect.
hopefully they'll get that message. But yeah, the lead detective on the case said to me that the handwritten letter that Bradley wrote 2 months before he went missing was nothing but crackhead gibberish, and they were not going to waste their time and resources investigating the letter. But the problem is, this letter names a couple of prominent business owners in a neighboring parish right next door neighbors in Beauregard Parish. And I think that they are doing nothing but saving face and covering their own butts, because I can imagine what a headache it would be to open an investigation on individuals like that. But why should we care about that? Why, it doesn't matter how rich you are, and, like I said before, Jesus forbid we taint the reputations of the pillars of this community. If the prominent people in our community are doing bad and dirty and illegal and evil things, they need to be exposed.
Absolutely.
He actually even mentions Jason in this letter. One of the lines says, Jason on Highway 10. In the whole entire 5 years, there was no other Jason on Highway 10. Just Jason McDaniel. But it wasn't worth looking into somehow. I can't get past the fact that a person who went missing hand wrote a letter and they refused to look into it. In what world would either one of you dismiss a letter that a missing person wrote and said, I'm writing all of this because I'm worried? It just doesn't happen.
No.
There's some things that's not a coincidence. And Bradley writing this letter and then going missing is one of them. And Austin O'Banion telling her eyewitness recount and then being found dead, also not a coincidence. I'll never believe that.
All right. Did he state in the letter why he was worried?
He made it sound like some people were trying to frame him. I don't know how you guys would want to do this. I could send a link to you guys of me reading the letter out loud, and I can send y'all pictures of the original copy, and you guys could somehow link it to this.
Yep.
I could read some parts of the letter, some highlight parts, if y'all would like for me to.
That's completely up to you.
Yeah.
Let's see. He says something about someone wanting him to wash his hands and then use their pocket knife to clean underneath his fingernails. And he says something about a person asking to use his lighter, a person that doesn't even smoke. And he was so specific about everything. He doesn't just say a lighter. He says a blue Bic lighter from my toolbox. It's very specific, that was so important to him for some reason. I need to find the part about the detective. He was speaking with a detective. Asked him.
You can read the whole thing if you want.
Okay, I'll go ahead and do that for you guys.
Yeah.
So I just want to show y'all. I printed this while I was at work, and I accidentally printed it on a really long piece of paper, and it is not the original handwritten letter, as I've explained many times or in other places and videos. Bradley's handwriting was atrocious, anyways, all the time. I could read his handwriting if he took his time. It was legible. Still wasn't the greatest, but it was legible. This letter he must have written in a rush. He must have written it very quickly. So I'm going to show y'all what I have here and what I'll be reading from. Okay, so this says Bradley Stracener's letter, August 24th, 2019, Saturday, Mom's apartment. This morning I woke up to my girlfriend Chelsea screaming at me for getting the sudden bill money, $100, which she told me I could use over the phone on my lunch break Wednesday. Why she did that, I don't know, but I believe she was recording it. Her phone was in her hand, and also she said she was. I believe it relevant only because she said she was going to call the cops. And for no reason, soon after that, I didn't call or arrange it, but a guy from work pulls up to pick me up an hour early from work for work. This is also out of his way to do this. I used his phone around 7:30 a.m. to call my Uncle Clifford to get Misty Bryant's cell number. Misty Bryant, I'm just going to kind of pause there. Misty Bryant is a detective from Vernon Parish Sheriff's Office. I used his phone around 7:30 a.m. to call my Uncle Clifford to get Misty Bryant's cell number to talk to her about Ron West, who my girlfriend was cheating on me with. I called her right after on the same phone, but deleted the call and had told her that I would buy a phone later in the evening to call her back and speak to her in more detail. Some very odd things happened afterwards. I said, "Hey, good morning," to my boss, Bill English. He completely ignored me. Soon after, I asked him what he wanted me to do, and he ignored me again, and I know I spoke loud and clear, and I felt he was pissed off at me. Mr. Vander, my girlfriend's landlord, also Bill English's friend, showed up, and Bill called me in, and I was told he was paying $150 to Vander out of my pay for the week. It was a check I did not get the receipt for or get to see the actual amount on. Next, he insists on me moving my storage unit on the other side of where it's at. Note, this is the second time he insists we go do this. He insists on Guy, and when I read the letter, I stop there as well because he mentions Guy a few times throughout this letter. And later in the letter, he mentions a person named Bobby Boycher, whose name was Bobby Guy Boycher. I do not know if Guy is another person named Guy or if that was Bobby Guy Boycher. And unfortunately, at this point in time, Bobby Guy Boycher is deceased. So we may never know. But resuming with the letter, Guy, who stole his briefcase, also works for him now. He said he insists on him taking me to lunch. We go to Sonic, and Kevin shows up beside us and asks to borrow my lighter. Blue Bic lighter that was in my toolbox. Saturday, after Guy has it with him, Kevin doesn't smoke, and he left with my lighter. When we got back to the job, Guy insists that I sit in his car, not in the dirty shop, and eat. I do. His phone is in the car. 15 minutes later, he comes back out and sits in the car and says, "When we get back, you should wash your hands and use my pocket knife to clean your fingernails." I got out, left the job, went across the road to America's Best Inn, and rented room 106. Then I see Daryl K on the log and Danny K's car in the parking lot, and his room is 122 on the logbook. I find it really weird that these things happened. Weirder that he's there because surprisingly, I happen to know he's planning to burn or have burned his house for insurance money because he had wanted me to do some work on the back two doors where the frame was rattled out from moisture, and he wanted to have the insurance claimed on job and give me half of what I quoted him on it. He said he had it burned, and later I asked him if he said he wasn't going to, and he said he wasn't going to do, and then it says ... And then my mom tells me it burned before it actually did. Jason on Highway 10 tells me he was there, and I asked him, did he see how bad it was? And he says, what? So I said it burned, but come to find out, it was 2 days before it actually burned down. And Danny shows up soon after and gives me a ride to Chelsea's in Rose Pine and said they were leaving. I believe Sunday before it burned, him and Bobby were in his car with clothes and stuff Friday after it burned. And as soon as I left Beauregard Transmission and went across the street to the motel, Danny is then in room 122 and insists I move to 121. I tried, but the lady up front at desk room is broken and has me sign a receipt. Gary, his wife, and Bobby Boycher and Danny's girlfriend all came by while I'm there and talked about the fire and getting investigated. They mentioned taking Danny to Skipper's Inn, that the room was paid. My boss has been mentioning that I could get a room at Skipper's Inn all week because I had been telling him I needed to move, that I was separating with Chelsea. He said it would be closer to work since I have no vehicle, but the motel Best Value Inn was actually across the road, when Skipper's is actually 2 or 3 miles down from the job. I find it really odd that I know Danny had his house burned. He knows I said it did before it actually did. The guys at work has been asking to buy drugs repeatedly. Comes to Sonic and borrows my lighter when he doesn't even smoke and leaves with it. The other guy insisting that I come in shop after eating and wash my hands really good and use his pocket knife to clean my fingernails. The day I told Mr. English I might talk to a detective about busting someone for drugs, I felt like he got pissed. He told me that people get killed for doing that. I went to Bill's other good friend, Glenn Dean, who told me before if I ever needed anything to come to him. He did, and after telling him, his wife said, shut my mouth and go back to work and all will be fine. Mr. Dean says I got one more phone call to make and I left. So I left something stuck to the bottom of the AC unit in 106. Lately, it felt like they were trying to set me up because of the things they were asking me to do, what they took from me, and the misunderstanding about why I was going to talk to a detective. I write all of this because I am worried. That's how he ended the letter.
That's definitely strange.
A lot to unpack in that letter.
A lot.
And it really, in my opinion, doesn't add up to crackhead gibberish.
No.
It's a lot of rambling about the same thing, but it's still the same story.
Right. He's very detailed. Very detailed.
Yes.
It all meant so much to him. He was so detailed.
Yeah.
And yeah, some of it does not make sense, but because of how specific he was,
right,
we don't know what was going on. I don't know what he was going through. I don't know what he was doing with these people or what these people were doing with him or anything that was going on in his life or theirs at that time. But because of how specific he was, I can't get over any of it.
No.
Right. Would he typically write letters like that?
He wrote a lot of things down. His mother has a Bible that he wrote in. He wrote all kinds of notes in. He wrote our son letters. He would write front and back things on cards, Hallmark cards. He wrote me letters all the time throughout the years. He was a writer. He was a note taker.
Where
Now
was this
that
letter found at?
Ma'am.
Where was the letter found at?
So that is a very, very, very popular question. I do not know if this letter was what was taped under the AC unit 106, or if it was another one. I don't know the answer to that. I wish to God I did. I just know that I am so thankful that we got copies of this, pictures of it, before it was taken by the sheriff's office, or else we would have never even known about this. We would have never known any of it.
Now the guy he mentions in that letter, did his house ever burn down?
It did.
Was it ruled arson or accidental? Do you know?
I'm pretty sure it was arson, and I think that there was a whole slew of people who were arrested for it. And that
Now,
might be their biggest mistake. There being Vernon Parish Sheriff's Office, because you call this letter crackhead gibberish, and it literally tells about a crime that you arrested people for.
right.
Wow. Do you know if
Now,
the homeowner was one of those that was arrested?
Ma'am,
Was the homeowner one of the ones that were arrested?
he was one of them, yes. Danny K.
Okay, I just
were
wanted to
they
put
ever
that out there.
charged?
Beyond their arrest for the crime, I do not know.
Now, in the beginning of the letter, it said that someone from his work had picked him up an hour early.
Mhm.
Was that typical, or did that never happen before?
Probably so. Bradley did have a vehicle, but I think that it had a lot of mechanical issues. And it's my understanding that it was kind of a typical thing for someone to pick him up from work.
Okay.
And who that person was, I don't know. Who picked him up? I wish I did. There's a lot of good information in this letter, but it also leaves a lot of questions and poses a lot more.
Right.
Right.
Do you happen to know if under the AC unit was ever checked?
I believe that it was, and like I said, I don't know if it was this letter or if there was something else or another letter. That is one mystery I've yet to solve. One of the many, many mysteries I've yet to come up with an answer for. He was telling his Uncle Clifford all of these things that he wrote in this letter months before he went missing. Around the time that he wrote this letter, he would contact his uncle, and his uncle helped Bradley, I'm willing to say, almost more than any person did. Bradley had lots of help and love and support, but no matter what Bradley ever did, his uncle was always there. And he told his uncle, these kinds of things, and his uncle and his aunt and I have spoke about all of this in great detail. And they did say that, unfortunately, they just thought that Bradley was being a little paranoid. And he said that he wishes he would have believed Bradley more and listened to him more and looked into it more. And now it's too late. And he has major regret, as we all do.
Jessica, do you have any more questions?
I'm just looking at the community questions. I'm not being rude at looking away from you. I just want to make sure that I get all the community questions answered as well. That looks to be all of the community questions. I just had one other question. Was he diagnosed with anything or on any medications for anything?
No, he was not. Um, Bradley wasn't crazy. Yes, he was a drug addict, and we know what drugs can do to a human brain, but he was not crazy. Bradley was a very smart, very intelligent individual. Um, he had a trade. He was a phenomenal welder. And there's a local business here in town, Parker's Steel and Supply, and Bradley was the lead man on many jobs for them. He completed tasks and jobs and a certain kind of welding that no one else around here could do, and they entrusted Bradley with that. They are phenomenal people. They cared a lot about Bradley. They thought a lot about him. And I love to have conversations with them about Bradley because to this day, you know, they have nothing but wonderful things to say about him. And they say the same exact thing that all of us say, how brilliant he was and how they just wish he could have beat addiction because of the potential that he had. So no, you know, just to I go off on a tangent sometimes, but to directly answer your question, no medical diagnosis, no mental health issues. Bradley was calm. He was quiet. He didn't like crowds, but he was funny and he was silly. I was with him for 7 years, and one of the best things that I can tell you about Bradley and mine and his relationship, through all of the pure hell that we ever went through because of his addiction, and this is the God's honest truth. I mean it with all of my heart, cold, hard truth. That man never once, even so much as raised his voice at me. He was not violent. He was not mean. He was not aggressive. For us to have as many fights as we did and he didn't holler and scream at me or lift a hand, you know, that says a lot about an individual. And I really love to make the joke that one day towards the very end of our relationship, I found out exactly why he never hollered at me. Because he was at his uncle's house and they had a log cabin built up off the ground. And I was down off of that porch in the yard and he was standing up on the porch. And I was drilling him. And I can't say the same for myself. I did holler. And I did become very emotional and irrational at times. And I just pushed him to his limit. And he tried to holler. He tried to yell. And he got about 2 words out. And his voice just cut out. His face was red, his mouth was moving, and it looked like I was looking at somebody yelling on mute. And I just make the joke to this day that that's why he didn't yell, is because he couldn't. And I hope that when I tell that he's looking down, just laughing his butt off with me.
Because the words were not coming out.
Yes.
Where can people follow his story and your journey in finding answers for Bradley?
I originally have always had Facebook. My personal Facebook page is Morgan Baggett, and I can be followed there. There is an anonymous page, an anonymous individual. I would like to think that it's someone in our community, but who knows? It's Noser Brown. And I have TikTok. I have for the last, since October 5th. I guess that's going on 6 months now. Where is Bradley Stracener? or my name. You could search either way. If you Google that, if you search my name, Bradley Stracener, it's Stracener, or where is Bradley Stracener? A number of things will pop up. He's in NamUs, the National Missing Persons Database. Local news, the Vernon Parish Sheriff's Office. It's everywhere.
You're doing a fantastic job.
I appreciate that. It's not easy. It's very exhausting. And I'm just doing it because it's the right thing to do. The goal was always to find Bradley and to solve his case. And unfortunately, it turned into solving the case of another unalive person. So much time and energy has been put into this. There's no quitting now. There's no turning back.
What can the community do besides following the story to help you?
Letters to everybody, the sheriff's office, the district attorney, Louisiana state officials. I don't know if it's true or not, but I've been told that if the FBI received an extreme flux of calls, that they could come in and investigate. Make the phone calls to everyone, everywhere, write the letters and send them on my behalf, Bradley's behalf. If you're anyone who cares about seeing justice being served and a missing person case and potentially a murder case being solved, those are all things that you could do. I've visited the district attorney, Terry Lambright, myself in person. They refused to call in assistance. I asked them directly if they would call in assistance from another agency, request the assistance of the state police or the FBI. That answer was no. Bradley and Austin's case are far from the only ones unsolved in this parish. Far. It's actually so disturbing. The first week in October, there were 2 elderly women murdered in a couple of towns over in Hornbeck. They made 2 posts about them. We haven't heard a peep. There's nothing else. Multiple shootings, lots of violent crimes. There's been an influx of violent crimes. Usually we would see like a gun crime, a firearm crime once or twice a year. There have been 6 in the past 5 months in this parish alone. We are on a couple of different we're in a couple of different articles, reputable articles, and they claim that Leesville, Louisiana is one of the top 10 most dangerous cities in Louisiana. And like I've already told y'all, 46 to 48,000 is our population in a very large parish. That has put us in a category with places like New Orleans, and the whole world knows about New Orleans, Baton Rouge, Shreveport, Alexandria, and it is so baffling. It screams something is wrong here. Something needs to be done. Things are out of control.
Yes, if the community can stand behind and write the letters and make the phone calls, that would definitely help.
Yes, absolutely.
Well, we want to greatly thank you for your time and your voice and your perseverance in this case and never giving up.
I appreciate y'all. I appreciate your organization and y'all being advocates. People like y'all help people like me doing what I'm doing. it's always an honor to even be considered, for something like this. And Bradley's case is important to me, obviously, but y'all do the work for so many people. With all the other missing people in this parish and the searches that have been conducted, I always say, even though finding Bradley is my ultimate goal, if we could find one of the other missing people, searching for Bradley, it would still be such a victory. It would, I would be elated. Obviously, I want to find Bradley, but if we conduct a search one day looking for Bradley and we find someone else and bring someone else closure, it would be just as big of a victory in my heart, in my mind. So I appreciate what y'all do.
We appreciate you and thank you for your time today.
Thank y'all. Thank y'all so much. And for anyone else that was watching, you guys did tell me that y'all was tell me the numbers now at the end of this.
Right.
Yeah, hold on. We gotta wait for Ryan. He's the one
Yeah,
that sees
Ryan.
that one. I can't even see it yet, so.
They said you're nervous, so we can't tell you.
Yeah, it was pushing between Facebook and YouTube 100 concurrent viewers across basically the whole time. So it was good.
That's awesome. And then no telling how many once it's posted.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Oh yeah, that's when you get
That's
most
where-
of them.